Hello and welcome to another discussion on state politics. And this time we are discussing the ongoing Rajasthan Assembly elections. We at the Institute for Governance Policies and Politics in New Delhi are trying to understand the complexities and the issues of state politics in different states of the country. And in this series today, we bring to you All Houses Divided. Who will gain the Raj in Rajasthan? Rajasthan goes to poll on the 25th of November 2023, and there's a direct contest between the two largest national parties of the country, the Congress and the BJP. The fight is on for 199 assembly seats in the state, where since 1993, no one political party has been given a continuous mandate, and the incumbent has always been replaced. Today, we are here to discuss if the trend would continue or the Congress party would upturn the trend, to know from the experts and the people on the ground if Modi is still a factor or the BJP's bet of not declaring Vasundhara Raje as the CM face would cost it dearly. To know if good governance and popular welfare schemes pay a dividend to the ruling government or not. To discuss these and many more questions, we have with us some of the best minds whose views on politics and elections in the country matter. Our panelists for today's discussion are, we have the resident editor of The Hindu in Delhi, Mr. Varghese K. George, who has visited the state for election and has been observing the state's politics for a long time. We have with us Mr. Yashwant Deshmukh, director of See Voter, a trusted name in electoral surveys and forecast. We have with us Dr. Sajjan Kumar, fellow at Prime Minister's Museum and Library in New Delhi, who has traveled vastly across the state in recent weeks and has been writing on the state's politics for a long time. I welcome you all and thank you very much for taking time out from your hectic schedules for this discussion. So let me begin with Mr. Varghese, and asking you about the impact of real issues and poll promises on the election outcome. In your piece yesterday on Rajasthan election, you wrote that the incumbent Chief Minister, Ashok Gehlot, is relying on good governance and the 7 guarantees he has promised to the people of Rajasthan. You further write that to counter Gehlot's promises, the BJP has come with Modi's guarantee. What do you think would work on the ground? Modi's guarantees or Gehlot's promises?
Thank you, Heena, for inviting me for this discussion, and very glad to be here with Yashwant Deshmukh and Sajjan Kumar, whose observations and writings have been really helpful in understanding and processing the political dynamics of this country. So before I come to the question that you raised, I am reminded of what happened in West Bengal in the last assembly election. So it is, I had written a piece then, which I called the paradox of anti-incumbency. West Bengal, every constituency, one would hear numerous complaints about the local MLA and corruption and misgovernance and the whole range of complaints against Trinamool Congress as a party, as a local leadership. But then when it veers around to who should be the chief minister, pretty much everybody thought Mamata Banerjee is the best chief minister candidate. So when all those factors were cancelled out, and finally when the outcome emerged, Mamata Banerjee indeed win the state, while she lost her own constituency, if I recall correctly. So something, I won't say, no 2 elections are similar, but something comparable is visible in Rajasthan. While if it were to be a referendum on who should be the chief minister, I do not think there is much of a contest there in Rajasthan at the moment, because Ashok Gehlot, due to his mastery over political management, his reputation has been one of an organizational man. His capacity to manage the Congress's internal dynamics in a very efficient manner. That was his reputation originally. What we saw in the last 1 year is a transformation to become a populist. I'm not using that word in a pejorative sense that it is being used in the Western context. So he engineered a kind of governance governance agenda, which is actually addressing specific and particular needs that his political experience told him would yield him significant electoral dividends. And a political opponent of his described his move in the following words. I'm not at liberty to name the person, but the genius of these schemes has been that it was not too early, it was not too late. The timing of it was such that people wouldn't forget that thing to the event that, okay, it becomes a non-issue by the time they go to the polls. And it is not too late that it is not percolated as an agenda or as a discussion point. So the timing he got correct. And he actually turned around the election, and he did manage to actually force a discussion that the Rajasthan election is open, which was never the case. In the last nearly 30 years, it was almost a given that the incumbent government gets voted out. To that extent, he is successful, but there are many, many factors that will be at play. On your question specifically about Modi versus Gehlot, I think on that question, if that actually gets framed only on that one, Gehlot will win, because Modi is, after all, not going to be the chief minister of Rajasthan. He is only he has significant popular appeal. I mean, one can say, if you recall 2018 and 2019, 2018 Gehlot won, Congress won rather, and in 2019, all 25 seats of Rajasthan went to the BJP. So that question will come. But if the BJP's attempt is limited to framing the election as a contest referendum on Modi or Gehlot, I think Gehlot has an edge.
I come to you, Dr. Sajjan, now. And in the last term of Congress, we saw that there were dramatic events that, brought in open the infighting between the Congress and the personal rivalries of Ashok Gehlot and another prominent leader of the Congress, Sajjan Pilot. Have those events been completely forgotten by the party cadre and the public, or do they still weigh on Congress's electoral prospects?
Yeah, see, this question can be responded at two levels. One, what is the perception around this intra-leadership fight within the Congress, Gehlot versus Sajjan Pilot? And two, what is the true scenario on the ground? Now, when I went to Rajasthan, I also went with the kind of process, with the outlook that this is an important issue which may go against the Congress and should help BJP, and therefore this is worth exploring. Now, in terms of the perception, yes, this is still a factor, and primarily both Congress and BJP leaders, and to some extent in terms of the objective, because respondents respond at two levels. One, what they think is going to happen. So every respondent will tell you, like a psephologist, what would be the outcome, what may happen. And then second is the subjective response. When you ask, what do you, feel? What are you going to do? And then sometimes you find a dissonance between the two. Now, in terms of perception, this is a factor, and BJP is very emphatic in asserting that this factor will help BJP at least in getting a significant chunk of the Gujars vote, which in 2018 consolidated behind the Congress, because Sajjan Pilot was a very popular face in 2018. However, in my interaction at least, I found that majority of Gujars, when I say majority, it may be 60 to 70%, because I did not do a quantitative thing, but based upon the purposive interview with groups, respondents, Gujar respondents, majority of them, whether grudgingly or enthusiastically, they are still swaying more in favor of Congress on account of the popular policy outreach, which Gehlot, because unlike Meena's, Gujars still are in need of the state support, welfare scheme support, because they have not been the beneficiary of the government jobs the way many communities have been, primarily the Meenas. So this is one factor. And therefore, they need some of the policies which has been popular in the last 1 year. And as Varghese said that the timing of Gehlot populist outreach, was neither too late nor too early. Because while in Madhya Pradesh, we saw Ladli Behan Yojana was 5 to 6 months back before the election. At least in Rajasthan, it was around a year back. And therefore, he created a Labharthi, which BJP trying to echo across India. In Rajasthan state election, you see there is a Labharthi, and Labharthi is primarily, if you see the swing voters. Certainly, Gehlot has created a regional. So this is one. When you go on the ground, I do not see Sachin pilot factor is troubling the Congress or the Gehlot. In fact, Gehlot has effectively vanquished Sachin pilot factor, if I may say so, because BJP and many of the anti-Congress voters are of the logical opinion that Sachin pilot factor will dent, and that's a strong and very credible, persuasive argument which people submit to you when you interact. But I do not see majority of Gujars kind of being swayed by the kind of very murky fight that happened, or the way Sachin Pilot was humiliated. In fact, many of the MLAs also who joined Sachin Pilot then, they are also reportedly trying to seek favor of Gehlot, because in the last 1 year, Gehlot has emerged as the X factor of Congress. So more than Congress, it is Gehlot who is the magnetic pull. And that is also true about majority of the Gujar respondents. I'm not denying a fraction of them, say 10-15% or something, may go against that. But I do not think Sachin pilot factor, because I do not see Sachin pilot factor as an asset for the Congress as of now. Because compared to 2018, Sachin Pilot is not an aspirational leader who represents youth, a new generation, and therefore a pan Rajasthan leader. He is now reduced just to be, to the non-Gujars, a leader of the Gujars. And to the Gujars also, his clout has diminished because he could not pull his own weight vis-a-vis Gehlot. And the community's structural location needs state support, and Gehlot has created a goodwill. So I do not think Sachin Pilot factor or the Gujar factor, at least specifically, is going to be a matter of deep concern for the Congress and Gehlot. But yes, in terms of perception, this is something which always is submitted to you by the respondents who think that this will help BJP.
In continuation of the same question, we see that, as you mentioned, that, Gehlot is Congress's X factor. But there's a crisis of leadership at the state level in BJP, and Vasundhara Raje has not been projected as the CM face. Do you think that will have an impact on BJP's electoral prospects, on how people perceive BJP to be a winning candidate?
Yeah, if not in terms of the direction, certainly in terms of the degree. Not projecting Vasundhara Raje is going against at least the margin of BJP. A year back, many of the BJP, anti-Vasundhara BJP lobby thought that because Congress intra-house fighting has created a very conducive ambience for the BJP in Rajasthan, and therefore, be it Gajendra Singh Shekhawat or Rajendra Rathore or Om Birla or Arjun Ram Meghwal, they all did not have anything common, but Om Mathur also, who is now in charge of Chhattisgarh, they all joined hands and started peddling a narrative that Vasundhara is now not only past her prime, but is a spent force, and therefore they can pull Rajasthan even without her. But it was significantly visible even 6 months back that not projecting Vasundhara was based on a very erroneous assumption. Yes, core voter of BJP in Rajasthan is intact. You talk to the core voter. When I say core voter, it's primarily the Rajputs, Brahmins, Baniyas, and other business community like Sindhis. They do not give a damn about whether Vasundhara is a face or not. In fact, many of them will toe the dominant, party line or organizational line. But when you go to the swing voters like OBCs and tribals, it is, when tribals, particularly in Mewar region, not the Meena tribals, so Bhil tribals, etc., you will find that yes, had Vasundhara been there, and this is a question we have been posing to the respondents, and we found that not projecting Vasundhara at least has made the OBC and the tribals and the swing voter, why every 5 years Rajasthan used to see a change of government? Because while the core voters used to be relatively intact, it was the swing voter from OBC and the tribals who used to always be more unhappy with the incumbent, and therefore they used to join the core of the opposition. And therefore you find every 5 years there is a change of the government. This time, to the credit of Gehlot, and it was also helped by the fact that only leader who could have some pull factor despite her kind of loss of prominence compared to her earlier kind of presence, Vasundhara Raje. So among the OBC and among the tribals, I do not see any other leader in BJP who has the kind of traction. Arjun Ram Meghwal cannot pull the Meghwal Dalit voters who are in significant numbers in Rajasthan. Similarly, Gajendra Singh Shekhawat or Rajendra Rathore, anyway, Rajput voters are voting Arjun. Om Birla, except for South Kota seat, the urban seat, you go into rural area, doesn't cut the ice. So not projecting Vasundhara Raje certainly has affected BJP in terms of the margins and the degrees. Whether it will alter the direction of the outcome is difficult to say. I have not done a quantitative study, but I personally feel that too much of an organizational arrogance on part of the BJP of not projecting Vasundhara because she doesn't fit into a strict organizational profile will affect the prospect of BJP in terms of the final tally, if not in terms of the direction.
Yashwant sir, what are your numbers and surveys telling you? What is working in favor of Congress and what is not working in favor of Congress and working for BJP?
Well, in our trackers all along in the last 5 years, barring the first few months of Congress government getting in, I guess that almost 4.5 years, Congress had issues which were less to do with governance and more to do with the infighting and organizational thing. So purely from, forget about data, purely from the journalistic parameters, I believe 9 out of the 10 headlines that Rajasthan created in national media or Rajasthan politics created in national media was negative. I mean, that's the big issue. In the last 6 months, however, they came together, they tried to, and of course, Sajjan rightly pointed out the core votes, they remain there, and when they remain there, the two warring faction, if they come together, doesn't mean that they will shift, somebody is going to shift to the BJP just because of that. So all of a sudden, Gehlot's ratings are high also because of the fact that the two factions have come along together. So earlier that 10-15% rating that used to go in Sachin Pilot's way, that has come down to 4-5%, and that 10% has gone to add up to the ratings of the chief minister. So there are multiple layers to what we are discussing. In my recent book, the pro-incumbency century, that I have been arguing that the larger political narrative of India is no more anti-incumbency. It is the CEO style working of the chief ministers or even the prime minister for that matter, or the delivery of the governance. So it's not just a scheme of labarthis, but actual delivery on the ground. And any half a decent leader who can ensure half a decent job tends to get re-elected in that way. And it gets challenged only when there is a complete disaster as far as delivery of governance is concerned, or there is a complete vacuum of alternative is concerned. So this is where exactly Varghese mentioned the case of West Bengal, that there was a complete vacuum of opposition. And in fact, that vacuum of opposition helped the BJP to propagate, climb from 3 to 70 because there was nothing. And yet, on the anti-BJP vote bank polarization, Mamata Banerjee went even crossing 200 further in that way. So, so even half a decent leadership and half a decent delivery of governance can do the trick these days, if there is a vacuum. problem with these three states, particularly that are kind of a set and continuity of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh, is that they are this time kind of beyond the binary of anti and pro incumbency. There is a kind of weird gray area of sort. For example, when you pick up Madhya Pradesh, we discussed narazgi nahi hai, oob hai. So how do you define fatigue? It's very weird. Can anybody quantify fatigue? Now, fatigue doesn't really translate into swing of vote from one party to other party. What happens is fatigue translates into low turnout of a relative faction. Fatigue translates into impacting the relative turnout of different factions. All right. So, like Shivraj Singh Chauhan is not unpopular, but if he seems to be in trouble at this point of time, it is fatigue, and probably, whenever the final results come in, we'll have to see whether the organization of the BJP was good enough to counter that fatigue by pulling out the people who are sitting at home and taking them to the booth. Same sort of situation is, say, for example, Chhattisgarh. Problem with Chhattisgarh is not that CM is not popular. He is popular, Yet, Congress, by virtue of winning a disproportionate number of seats last time and disproportionate number of non-performing MLAs, the anti-incumbency at the micro level is somehow posing as if there is an emotion to change. Now, emotion to change is a very weird phenomenon. Emotion to change what? Emotion to change the MLA, emotion to change the Sarkar, emotion to change the Chief Minister. That's a very layered thing to map, That's why these elections are posing a different kind of challenge also. So when we come down to Rajasthan, now, why I mentioned MP and Chhattisgarh in this thing, because there are many things common, but many things are making these elections very different from each other. For example, Bhupesh Baghel has the luxury of surplus MLAs. When I say surplus MLAs, he can very well chop down the tickets deny the tickets to non-performing MLAs. That's a age-old practice, actually kind of perfected by Narendra Modi when he was Gujarat Chief Minister. That you have access MLAs and then you change the candidates so the local level incumbency gets countered. Okay. And since then, it has been used by many chief ministers who have comfortable majorities with them. In case of Bhupesh Baghel, he can afford to do that. Unfortunately for Mr. Gehlot, he doesn't have that kind of surplus. Because in the internal fighting of the BJP, he had to actually manage, internal fight of the Congress, he had to manage and take support of each and every MLA. Good or bad doesn't matter. And now, when the time of crisis is over, but the time of ticket distribution is there, he is hardly in a position to deny a ticket to even a single supporter who has been with him for the last 4.5 years. So he doesn't have that luxury. So problem with Mr. Gehlot is altogether different. He is not unpopular. He is as popular as Bhupesh Baghel, as popular as Shivraj Singh Chauhan. He is not facing a serious challenge as far as the opposition face is concerned. Like Bhupesh Baghel doesn't have Raman Singh to actually counter because BJP did not project him. Similarly, Gehlot doesn't have Vasundhara Raje because BJP did not project her. As simple as that. Still, even after that, I guess that eventually it will be a problem of ticket distribution, number one. It will be a problem of not replacing the non-performing MLAs, number two. It will be a problem of not exactly Gujar votes in terms of that they are swinging to the BJP lock, stock and barrel, but all the candidates of Congress who are seen as Gehlot candidates will not get the Gujar support. So if you read today there is a very good report in Indian Express, on the certain constituency where a Sachin Pilot candidate who changed the camp and went ahead into Gehlot camp, and that is in a Gujar-dominated belt, basically, Desh ke gaddaron ko wala jo nara hai, that got changed into pilot ke gaddaron ko, and so on and so forth. So his guy is unable to campaign. Sachin Pilot's own die-hard supporters, Gujar fan base, are not allowing him to campaign as such. So these internal issues are adding to the problem of what could have been a very historic second mandate for Congress. I mean, because come to think of it, there are historic second mandates coming up. We have seen so many of them, even Kerala for that matter, we have seen them, right? So there are many times the first that are happening, the first time repetition. UP we have seen, Uttarakhand we have seen, Kerala we have seen, So it could have been a very well historic second mandate in terms of Rajasthan. But somehow because of these multiple reasons, I find it that I find it in the data in the last almost a year or so, like that, and all the reports and inputs and the qualitative inputs as well, that if Mr. Gehlot repeats, it will be nothing short of a miracle. Nothing short of a miracle, number one. And I totally agree with Sajjan on one point, that lack of giving value or weightage to Vasundhara Raje might possibly result in a muted or stunted victory, which otherwise probably could have been a one-way sweep kind of thing. So Mr. Gehlot is actually lucky from that perspective. That is one thing which is working in his favor, that BJP did not apply itself fully behind Vasundhara Raje, and that is what actually making him seem like is still in contest of sorts. But yes, this is a very, very interesting election. I mean, so much similar, yet though so dissimilar to each other, and going beyond the binaries of pro and anti-incumbency. There is a gray area in each of these states in a very, very unique way.
Varghese sir, in the whole election, there has been this narrative, as you yourself write in your article, Modi versus Gehlot, right? So BJP has been relying heavily on the Modi magic to convince voters to vote for BJP. Now, does that reflect on a failure on part of BJP there's a trust deficit between the central and the state leadership? And is there a failure on part of BJP to set new political discourse, and it has only been responding to what Gehlot has been setting? And how do you think this Modi magic strategy is working in favor of BJP?
Well, it is whether it is working or not, BJP is pretty definitive about that strategy, because that is not only about Rajasthan. In fact, the BJP's own perception and their emphasis, not necessarily publicly articulated, is that the BJP lost Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh in 2018 only because the Modi factor was not adequately emphasized. The BJP continues to believe, that the BJP central leadership, that had Modi been the face of the BJP in all these three elections in 2018, BJP would have won all three. So its starting point is that. And then if you look at what happened in subsequent elections, the latest one being Karnataka, the BJP is very insistent on one thing, which is that regardless of the outcome, even if we lose, we would rather not have a state face. Ironic it is, because the current BJP central leadership is actually the outcome of an organizational style during Vajpayee-Advani era that encouraged regional leaders to emerge. In fact, that time, the fundamental difference between the Congress and the BJP, one could argue organizationally, was the BJP was a party which had multiple leaders and state level champions and strong leadership, opposed to Congress, which was very driven by the Delhi and the high command culture. So perhaps that actually explains the suspicion that the current leadership has of state leadership, because they themselves have come through a mechanism in which you emerge as a very strong leader in a state. You capture that state's resources and the capacities that you can accrue by being the unquestioned leader of a state. Then you emerge as a national leader. If you look into 2013, the conflict that was actually happening within the BJP, it was, though when it all looks very clean when we are today, 10 years later, but exactly 10 years ago today, there was a massive internal power tussle that was going on in the BJP. The various regional leaders were jostling for space to emerge or to at least to undercut each other and other things. So out of that churn emerged the current BJP leadership, which is of Mr. Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. And then subsequently, they obviously have that memory of how they themselves have emerged. And therefore, they're very aware, acutely aware of what strong regional leaders could do. In fact, during the last UP election also, there were the speculation about what will be the positioning of the UP chief minister. And then if you recall, there was there was a realization that there was no alternative to Yogi Adityanath. Then there was a very famous picture about the prime minister and the chief minister posing for a picture, which was almost, I think, towards the last days, to project that, okay, he himself, it's a Yogi Modi face. I mean, they coined that whole campaign around that thing. But when it came to Karnataka, it was very clear that the BJP's decision to sideline Yediyurappa would be costing the party dearly, but the party did not budge. It has its own reason other than personal ego clashes. I'm sure there are good enough reasons to make that point as well. So for all these reasons, BJP would rather win on the strength of Narendra Modi than as part of a joint combined leadership in each state, which could actually, if you have an array of chief ministers who are emerging stronger, particularly in the 10th year of your own government in Delhi, that is going to create internal dynamics within the BJP and the Sangh Parivar, which may not be to the liking of the current leadership. So that pretty much explains why they are doing what they do, while the outcome or the implications of that thing for the outcome or the BJP, it's a different debate.
Sajjan sir, Rajasthan also has had a bad record in terms of incidents of violence against women, caste atrocities, and there have been extreme cases of violence based on communal flare-ups. So are these issues receiving the attention that they should, and what have been the party's strategy to tackle these issues?
Yeah, let's look at it from both the parties' perspective. From Congress perspective, yeah, I mean, there have been regular incidents of atrocities against the Dalits. Crime against women has been reportedly, regularly reported. The law and problem issue has been there. So this is one set of issue which is troubling, which has been troubling the Congress until recently. On the other hand, there are certain positives, and which is about the MRS Mehengai Rahat schemes of Gehlot, and at least in the northern part, North India, you see it's way better than in the 1 year, the delivery, or at least the perception on the ground was that it's effective. That's there. Now, this is one part. On the part of the BJP, certainly BJP has been consistent and in this at present also it is very aggressively pitching around those narrative of the failure, governance failure. And therefore, a number of issues are there. What is the electoral psychology before the elections, because when we go to the election, particularly closer to the electoral processes, there's so much of narrative, competing narratives, so many contradictory but very credible arguments and facts also, that we encounter, that it becomes very difficult to kind of decide which set of narratives will have the final say vis-a-vis the other. One thing that is always true about the voter is that there is never one single issue, how important that may be, barring few exceptions, it never affects their overall voting choice. A voter on the ground, he or she always decides what we always call in the final analysis. I mean, something that, yes, there are A, B, C factors which may go against the incumbent or against the opposition. There are X, Y, Z factors which work in favor. But as Yashwant sir said, that unless and until something extraordinary, some very shocking incident which has a popular resonance across the state doesn't happen, people usually do not get swayed by a single set of incidents. So in Morbi, before Gujarat election, the hanging bridge collapsed, and suddenly you find, and everyone is debating, will it does it expose the misgovernance of Gujarat? Will it finally kind of work in favor of Aam Aadmi Party? All sort of things, because this frame of trying to take one set of event or issues as the most important determinant of voters' behavior or decision doesn't work to the large majority of the voters. These factors are there. The crime, I mean, from the Congress perspective, the gender question and the Dalit question should have gone decisively against the party. And BJP has been campaigning, but people also need, a credible face to relate to. So women may feel that they are relatively unsafe during the Congress regime compared to, say, Vasundhara regime, but there is no Vasundhara. And then there is also an attempt to kind of create a parallel competing positive narrative by going for a popular policy outreach. And therefore, it becomes only a quantitative survey can determine to what extent, the negativities or misgovernance or failure on part of the regime kind of will certainly affect the women and Dalit voters. I mean, at least two sections, if we see, who have been at the receiving end, going against the incumbent regime. And therefore, finally, what I feel that as far as the Dalit voters are concerned, yes, you ask them about the question, they do say that there has been many incidents. But remember, it's not just about Rajasthan. We know the narrative around Hathras incident. And remember, BJP won Hathras seat by a margin of more than 1 lakh. And a significant number of the Valmiki Dalit voters voted for BJP. It's not just the non-Dalit voters. So this kind of frame to understand the election around one set of issues is something that is always an instrument into the hands of the rival party. But the voter on the ground doesn't kind of take a final decision unless until it is too shocking to ignore all other competing narrative. And I think at least Gehlot is lucky that in the last 1 year, a perception on the ground was created that his government has been outreaching the people through certain schemes and policies. And I do agree about, that when we say that this one thing is that the fact that we are discussing who will win Rajasthan itself is a new factor about the current election in Rajasthan. Two, when we say that Congress has a fair chance, a counter argument may also be from BJP's perspective that fairness may be that whenever Congress used to lose, it used to lose to the extent of 20 to 40 seats. And whenever BJP loses, it remains in and around 70 seats or something. So the core of the BJP seems to be a bit larger than that of the Congress. But this time when we say that Congress is also very much into the game, from BJP perspective, it may be a case that this time if they are crossing 60 seats, say for example, or they are approaching towards 70, that itself is an achievement, and that itself means that Congress, compared to the stint wherein it lost election, it's doing way better. But I do not think that the question of Dalit atrocities or crime against women is the prime factor why Congress will be at the receiving end. Prime factor why Congress will be at the receiving end, if that happens at all, with many if and buts, would be because Gehlot is the lone warrior of the Congress. Gehlot is with a very structural disadvantage, having a weak organization, having a relatively smaller core, and therefore he needs to pull the swing voter overwhelmingly in his favor, that is the OBCs and the tribals, So that sort of things are there. And if BJP wins, it won't be because the women would be rallying behind BJP because of their very negative experience on the plank of law and order, or Dalit would be warming up to the BJP, something that is not seemingly happening so far, I feel. So these issues are there, but these competing issues are something that is always a matter of very multiple variables present to the voters. But voter on the ground always takes a decision in overall analysis, in the final analysis. And I think in the final analysis, women and Dalit factor is not something that is going at least against Gehlot's image as of now, though this is something they may not be warmed up to him. So women may be a victim, but the women may is also a beneficiary when you give 600 rupee subsidy to every LPG gas cylinder. So how as a woman, how do you decide? There is a conflicting emotions, as a woman, logically you feel you are relatively more unsafe, and tangibly you are more, beneficial of the regime. And I think in the last, this beneficial part will also resonate with a significant number of women, and along with that many other factors would be layered about the caste, community, kind of the candidate profile, all sort of things. And therefore I think lack of the law and order and the atrocities on Dalit, I do not think this is a very crucial electoral determinant to women and the Dalits.
Yashwant sir, how about the smaller parties? Bahujan Samaj Party, Rashtra Loktantrik Party, Bharatiya Tribal Party, Azad Samaj Party placed it in this election. Last election, we saw that Congress was able to form the government only with the help of the BSP candidates. So in this neck-to-neck contest, this election, will the smaller parties be able to swing the election one way or the other? Like, how is the support coming to them?
Well, yeah, I mean, people generally look at these states as bipolar states between BJP and the Congress, but the fact has been that almost 20 to 25% of the vote in all the three states have been always going to the others, as we call it. And others also include, by the way, significant number of rebel candidates of either party. However, the mood in the last 10 odd years in India has been of political polarization, that's one thing, but also the clarity that comes along with this in terms of winnability. If you remember the UP Assembly elections, you will realize that UP Assembly election was nothing but bipolarization of a state which has arguably for almost like 35 years dealing with the triangle or quadrangular kind of contest. But when the bipolarization process started, look what happened to BSP. Forget even about Congress. If the BJP could not survive that onslaught of bipolarization, Congress was nowhere in the race to start with. So I wasn't surprised with the 2% votes of the Congress. We knew that this is where it is going to end up, And similar kind of situation is now happening in these states where BJP and the Congress bipolarization is squeezing third parties out. We know we have reports of Samajwadi Party Supremo campaigning in Madhya Pradesh, 24 seats, if I'm not wrong. He held 20 rallies, And if the Congress fails to win these seats, then of course, a lot of post-election analysis will happen, how the failure of Congress to accommodate Samajwadi Party kind of resulted in that kind of disaster. But from pure, micro level seat analysis is a different thing. But at the macro level, what the data is suggesting is that the others are going to be squeezed out. That's what. And that is primarily the reason that why the ruling parties are in the data somehow coming up as if they are not losing votes and they are gaining votes. So when you talk about anti-incumbency, there are a couple of thumb rules, right? Say for example, the ruling party should be losing the votes. The chief minister should be unpopular. There should be a palpable anger against the sitting government. Now, in all these three states, none of these three things are happening. That's why we are having an issue with the traditional definition of anti-incumbency per se. That even if all three chief ministers, suppose, hypothetically speaking, lose, and even if the opposition parties come to power in these three states, I would still have problem in defining them as an anti-incumbent verdict. That's the problem. So, from that context, the bipolarization is helping both the parties increase their vote share a bit. If the third parties or others vote still come up high, it probably will have less to do with the smaller parties and more to do with the rebel candidates. That's a possibility. Beyond these factors, the thing which one has to acknowledge and also analyze, none of these states are actually voting in a homogeneous way. There are huge regional variations in each of these states. Each state has one or the other region which is going completely BJP way, the other completely going the Congress way, and some regions are kind of really contested in a very tough manner. So the bellwether seats, as we used to call them, sometimes I feel like maybe there would be bellwether regions and bellwether districts, not just seats. And of course they would be also because the demographics are different. And that plays its own role of sorts. However, having said that, as I mentioned earlier, these are very, very defining. If I may call, actually taking what Sajjan said and what Varghese said, these three elections are basically the popularity or governance or leadership of the Congress state leadership versus BJP, the organization. Yeah. That's what it is. It is Kamal Nath versus the BJP, the organization, RSS, the infrastructure of organization. It's Baghel versus the BJP, RSS. It's basically Gehlot versus the BJP, RSS. Yes, Modi face and Modi faction, as we know, it started with Rajasthan only, Rani Teri Khair Nahi, Modi Tujhse Bair Nahi. Since then, this Nara is going across India with different weight shape, names change, and the Nara is kind of reinvented in every state in different ways, right? So one thing which intrigues me to observe in Rajasthan, and it's a big if still because the results are not yet out, BJP manages to win purely on the organizational strength, then as Sajjan said, it would be a question of debate whether it was a stunted victory or not. That's one thing. It's not a question of kitna jeetenge, it's a question of, agar Vasundhara ko dete यूं होता तो क्या होता, गालिब साहब का शेर है, लेकिन वो उसी अंदाज में उसकी एनालिसिस होगी. What kind of pushes me to think aloud is something. If the BJP is managing to give a fight to Kamal Nath, as an organization, I mean, even after 20 years being in power, if the BJP is in a position to say that even a very popular chief minister like Bhupesh Baghel can be given a run for its money, purely on the organizational strength, if the BJP can say that, okay, we can push aside Vasundhara Raje and still manage to win an election purely on the organizational thing, then we need to ask ourselves a very, very fundamental question on the nature of politics that we are looking now at in India. Organizational versus the leadership, what is asset and what is a liability. Clearly, the Congress has a liability in terms of organization and asset in terms of a regional leadership. With the BJP, it might be counted as the other way around. All right. There is then comes to the national game. There is a clearly, with the BJP that their regional leadership is liability, their central leadership and asset. With the Congress, it is just the opposite, bang opposite. Now, looking at 5 months, 6 months down the lane, because I know whenever we talk about these elections, everybody jumps up to 2024. So these election results are going to be very, very critical in order to ascertain what BJP can score purely on the organizational muscle power, organizational strength. I don't think they are bothered about 24. Not at all, because 2018 has proven that the concept of honeymoon period, which used to be analyzed till 90s, is no more there. That honeymoon period was like a concept which was said that anybody who wins an election, Lok Sabha or Vidhan Sabha, if the other election happens within 6 months of that period, the same result will come. So 2018 demolished it. All 25 out of 25 within 4 months went to the BJP. 27 out of 29, Madhya Pradesh. 10 out of 11 or 9 out of 11 in Chhattisgarh. Right?
10 out of.
So, 10 out of the 11 Chhattisgarh. So, what I feel that on third evening, when we are looking at the result, I would like everybody to look at the result as BJP's pure pizza-based result. There is no topping in it. It is pure pizza-based result. And 24 की toppings तो अभी उनको डालनी बाकी. There would be, Ram Mandir ka tadka, there would be some more thing. And then the cherry on the top, obviously, it will be Narendra Modi's election, in that way. So that Modi dividend of whatever in the last 10 years of 10 to 20% votes, as we have seen across elections, that BJP in the assembly elections tends to get 10 to 20% votes less than the Lok Sabha, or in other ways, 10 to 20% votes more than the Vidhan Sabha. And that kind of a incredible Modi dividend, as you call it, that would be very interesting to observe on the third evening when we know the vote share of this pizza base. That's a plain organizational muscular value of the BJP. That's the vote share is going to tell you, regardless of the result. And then you can think of adding 10 to 20% of the base. And that might tell you what is going to happen in 2024.
Now, before we conclude the discussion, I want to go to each one of you one by one, and I have two related questions. 2 days before the state goes to poll, which party looks better placed in appeasing and swaying the voters in their favor, BJP or Congress? Varghese sir?
Well, I think that is a very good question to actually segue into what Yashwant just mentioned about the organizational aspect. In fact, this is also, I am just framing it as a question also to both of them, and particularly to Sajjan, who's actually traveled more in Rajasthan than I have. So when we understand the election, BJP's ability to garner votes, even in the absence of strong state leadership, yes, it is an outcome of the inherited organizational structure that the Sangh Parivar and the RSS and the BJP, they have. That is one aspect of it. That organization, that infrastructure, that architecture remain intact, regardless of what politics is around. But there is also a process which is actually happening simultaneously, which is the autonomous nature of the politics that the Sangh Parivar represents. Hindutva, this also ties in with the polarization thing that we discussed earlier. So you do no longer need an organization to pursue that politics, because it's sort of been internalized by a threshold population. In fact, it is the BJP and the Sangh Parivar is actually, organizationally speaking, they are a victim of its own success, because the idea of Hindutva is no longer linked to RSS or the BJP, or I would say even to Narendra Modi at this moment. That is actually creating a lot of problems for them. But at that apart, they're pretty much comfortably riding that wave, which actually no longer need any effort on your part. So that actually is driving the BJP's success at one level. And that is also giving BJP this confidence that we will be able to achieve it regardless of who the candidate is, what the circumstances are, and regardless of what it is, we will still be winning. So right now, you have a politics which is independent of these organizations, but that politics has an iconic leader in Narendra Modi. So in a different context, I was reading the early 20th century, early 1920s history of Indian National Congress, in which I think Ravinder Kumar describes Gandhi and Henry Gandhi's. Gandhi was a mass leader who nobody followed, because everybody would swear by Gandhi and would do their own stuff. Everything is in Gandhi's name. But Gandhi was the ultimate mass leader. So Modi is in that I would say that kind of a phase. If when Prime Minister Narendra Modi wishes happy Eid, you should actually go and see what is written on his timeline by his own followers, So that is where that politics is. So therefore, that autonomous nature of the politics that was of which the BJP Sangh Parivar was the sole custodian of until say 5 years ago, that is the most significant political transition that we've been seeing, and this election will definitely be an outcome of that thing. So therefore, what will happen in the next 3 days is how strong that current is in Rajasthan, as opposed to all these questions that we discussed a while ago until now about welfare, leadership, management, organization, governance. All those questions can actually be overturned if the question of Hindutva politics overtakes and more or less vanquishes all these other talking points. So therefore, it's a possibility that I am putting forward, and I would actually love to hear what Sajjan Kumar particularly might have to say from a field reporting, and Yashwant on his analysis from a distance. What will be again, just to conclude, so far we've not seen the kind of very aggressive Hindutva pitch, though there have been some references about Kanhaiya murder and appeasement, those kind of references we see, but there is no open aggressive Hindutva pitch. So how polarized is Rajasthan on religious lines, and what might the BJP be doing in the next 2-3 days is a question and a reflection that I put forward to the other panelists.
Dr. Sajjan.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask about the micromanagement, certainly BJP has the organizational edge in 3 assets. But let me tell you, organizational edge also has certain limitations, because you have to see the interplay of organizational strength in the backdrop of the societal sentiment or electoral sentiment. Let me tell you. And there is also not just about Rajasthan. I particularly find that there were states wherein BJP could have easily won the election. For example, Chhattisgarh for the last 6 months, whenever you go to the ground, you find n number of fault lines which were going against the Congress. But I never found the kind of passion and the kind of commitment and investment that was required. Yeah, in the last leg of election, BJP did, the central leadership. But 6 months back, you could see in Madhya Pradesh, at least the organization of the BJP, was over-investing. I mean, election 4 to 5 months back was seemingly was apparent to everyone that it's going against the BJP. And just a couple of months before the election, it seemed when BJP creatively, in a very textbook template, fielded regional bigwigs in every region. And mind it, unlike Rajasthan, wherein Riya Kumani and others were fielded from the safer candidates, in Madhya Pradesh, most of the bigwigs were given very tough seats, and many of them may lose the seats. Many bigwigs may lose the seats. For example, in Chambal, Morena, Dimni seats of Narendra Singh Tomar, it's extremely tough to win because of the local factors. But he was fielded. Prahlad Singh Patel for Narsinghpur. Then what's the name of Kailash Vijay Varghese? So that number one constituency in Madhya Pradesh, that's a tough seat because the Congress incumbent has a very door-to-door and ground. So he may win because it's because the urban seat he may escalate. So what I'm saying, you could see the organizational commitment, and if you compare Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, you see, and sometimes you are perplexed at why that RSS and BJP might was not reflected on the ground in Chhattisgarh, which could have been a relatively easier terrain for the BJP. In the last, Baghel was given almost a walkover every time until Karja Maafi thing was not there. Election was genuinely supposed to be very close. And when he went ahead with the Karja Maafi with a credible track record, because in the first stint of power, in 2018, he has done that, then many of the OBC voters, were genuinely waiting for the response of the BJP. What BJP? Because they wanted BJP. It seems like I'm a BJP voter, but I have more, material incentive to vote for the Congress because of material benefit. But I am wishing that BJP should also at least promise, what's that Ranjishi Sahi, kind of, yeah. So that sort of gives, just at least promise, give me an excuse. And BJP did not promise, on that plan. BJP simply did not engage, So you find that organizational strength is there. There is always an edge of micromanagement. But why Chhattisgarh did not witness, at least up to 10 days before the elections, and Madhya Pradesh witnessed, whether they win or lose, but you have to give it to BJP that they brought the election closer. They snatched the anti-incumbency sentiment by creative experimentation, from making Kamal Nath versus Shivraj to Kamal Nath versus many faces, not removing Shivraj Singh Chauhan because he was faced against whom there were fatigue, but there were also committed constituencies. So he was there and he was not there. And then there were many opponent field. Why that sort of experimentation was not there in Chhattisgarh? So these are the questions that perplexes us. Was BJP simply not in a mood, or was there an attempt to let go of the state election, as Yashwant sir said, that kind of let us see the base of the pizza, kind of how much strength we want to test the water, so that you go for a complete organizational or leadership overhaul, right? Because one faction of the BJP is arguing that this is the best moment for BJP. Why they are antagonizing the regional satraps, knowing very well that retaining them at least will help them to some extent, if not to a great extent, because they're saying that this is the time, this is the best time. If you do not experiment at this moment, perhaps you will not get that opportune time to go for the organizational overhaul. Will that happen? Will the organizational ability of the BJP or the plan succeed? Because in Rajasthan, we have seen, Karnataka, we have seen from humiliating Yedurappa to trying to bring him in the last leg, and now, trying to appease him, inducting his son and all sort of a thing. So many a times, yes, BJP has the better ability of micromanagement because they have a committed multiple matrix of organization, and that matrix of organization always helps them, because Congress has Congress, but BJP has BJP, it has ABVP, it has, of course, Youth Morcha, then you have multiple branches of RSS, all sorts of voluntary organizations, citizenship associations. Congress simply cannot match that the web that BJP and RSS has in terms of organizational outreach. But that doesn't seem to be the default case in every state. And in Rajasthan, certainly BJP has better organizational management, ability. But will that really work? It will work in at least ensuring that the voters who want to vote for BJP but may not be very enthusiastic, they can pull those voters, to the booth. But will it also neutralize the swing voter, which may be swayed by Gehlot's populist policy? The answer is no. Yes, BJP has better organizational ability, but that is not always the final variable in elections, because I think one autonomy is also of the voters' autonomy. If a voter is determined not to be swayed, even if logically he or she is not very much enthused by A or B, but not to be swayed, how much you try to sway the voter by organizational outreach, it doesn't affect. And core voter anyway kind of is committed. So to that extent, BJP's core will turn out more in numbers, because one thing, I think it may be because perception advantage is that there is no match for Gehlot. But one factor that finally may help BJP in slightly outsmarting, if not majority, but to some extent, that BJP is very careful in Rajasthan. It is not overconfident. They may project a 120, 125 seats, but if you talk to them in person, and you could see the worry and anxiety in the BJP camp that this is not an election where they can afford to be complacent, and therefore certainly when the organization is worried, and for a party like BJP, which has the organizational ability to ensure a voter turnout, at least of the core voter, certainly on that, yeah.
Sajjan, I just want, because she has to conclude also. So how communally polarized is Rajasthan at this moment? That is a question I would.
Mewat and Udaipur. Mewat region and Udaipur. Rest of the Rajasthan doesn't seem to be much polarized. Mewat region, because traditionally you have the Muslim presence is more. It borders Haryana, no incident happened. And then compared to, we have Yadav population. And mind it, when leadership issue, and this is something you find a very perplexing sort of how a leadership kind of a perception travels. So when you pose a question, if not Vasundhara, who? Then suddenly, in Barmer, in kind of say Dungarpur, people will talk, ek Baba Balaknath hai. You ask, who is Baba Balaknath? We know that he is a MP of Alwar. But Rajasthan is such a big state, in terms of territory, that one region may not be in tune with the demography and the factor. So they know that, yes, there is one Baba Balaknath who, so why you want Baba Balaknath? Because वो योगी जैसा है. Rajasthan को भी एक योगी जैसा चाहिए. So Hindutva doesn't need to be peddled by BJP, and RSS. There is some sort of softness at the societal level also, and that may not be very intense communal thing. It's just a kind of what you say, it's a centrist sentiment कि हाँ योगी जैसा चाहिए. योगी जैसा क्यों चाहिए? Apparently it won't be a communal, because he is very effective, a bachelor who ensures law and order, all sort of thing. So communal active polarization, the way we frame it, you find in Udaipur region because of the Kanhaiya Lal case. In city there is a murmuring because Congress Gaurav Vallabh, what's the name of that candidate who has been fielded from Congress, the spokesperson. And in Mewat region, you find in the Alwar and other regions, it is there. But in rest, you go to Marwar region, people will talk about how Jats will vote, how Bishnoi will vote, all sort of things that is there. You go to Hadoti region, that is Kota, etc. Everywhere is the caste and community and the schemes versus. I have not seen Hindutva being a dominant sentiment, at least in terms of the electoral narratives. It is there in bits and pieces in some regions, but doesn't seem to be the case. Though some soft, people are already kind of BJP supporters are discussing a lot, because people want to be entertained. When election is there, they do not want to. So even if a variable is not a significant variable and people subjectively do not relate to it, you go to, for example, in Himachal, it was very interesting. All the 68 seats, you go and talk to the people. first thing they will say, this time there is a new option also, and therefore it's very difficult. What is that new? So Aam Aadmi Party, objectively in perception, was everywhere in Himachal, and you ask, "Aap vote karenge?" And they'll say, "No, I'm a BJP or a Congress." So people also enjoy, and particularly the male voters, they do enjoy making electoral narrative more complex, more kind of unpredictable, so that until the votes are out, election is a time wherein people want some entertainment in terms of there should be suspense. Everyone knows that Ravan is going to be killed by Rama, but when Lakshman is wounded, you cry and make the outcome a bit more entertaining. So communal thing is not, I think, a variable the way it used to be or is expected to be, except for some bits and pieces.
Yashwant, sir.
I'm glad Sajjan mentioned Ravana and Lakshman, because BJP definitely tried to invoke Bajrang Bali in Karnataka. They tried to send a message, ping him, "We need you." Bajrang Bali looked down and said that, okay, there might be Ram Ravana Yuddha and I must go back. But then he realized कि ये गली मोहल्ले की लड़ाई है. It's not a Ram Ravana Yuddha, so I need not go there. So he refused to come. So what is happening here is, it's funny. Yes, Varghese is absolutely bang on that Hindutva politics is actually no more in the realm of the BJP. Yes, that's their core politics. But very clearly we can see that the regional leaders, and big number of them, have realized that. And particularly in case of Congress, there you see two different, I won't say a thought process, but two ways of negotiating the elections in that way, strategically speaking. All their regional chief ministerial aspirants or sitting chief ministers may not be aggressive Hindutva people like Yogi Adityanath or Himanta Biswa Sarma or some other BJP leaders, but certainly they are not shy of wearing their Hindutva identity on their sleeves. That's a big difference, I would say, that this big change that this country's politics has witnessed, And I have come to a conclusion, looking at all these trends, that in India, you can very well win an election being seen as a pro-Muslim candidate. No problem in that. So many, BJP in the last 10 years has lost half the elections in this country. Actually, because everybody is so over-focused on 14 and 19 that people do not realize this fact, that BJP lost half the elections in this country. And ranging from Mamata Banerjee doing the Chandi Path to Kamal Nath doing the Hanuman Chalisa to everybody in between, you will realize all these chief ministers or would-be chief ministers have no issues being seen as pro-Muslim chief minister or pro-Muslim leader. You can very easily win election being a pro-Muslim leader. But I doubt you can win any election anymore in India being seen as anti-Hindu leader or anti-Hindu party. That's a very fine line, but a very, very important differentiator. And this is what also puzzles me in that way and kind of intrigues me, that the formula with the Congress local leaders have very clearly understood. And by the way, in one of the snap polls, Sajjan, we did ask in Madhya Pradesh whose Hindutva you trust more, and actually Kamal Nath scored over Shivraj Singh Chauhan, to our surprise. He scored 41, Shivraj scored 40. He was 1 or 1.5% more than Shivraj.
Maybe that's an indication of the outcome also.
No, that's possible. But what I'm simply trying to say that that on a question of Hindutva, it was the first instance of any Congress leader kind of coming equal or better than a BJP leader as such. But I'm equally confused that when something is so easy to understand that you can be pro-Muslim, but you shall not be seen as anti-Hindu, this simple strategy, equation, fact, why it is so hard for the Congress central leadership to understand. It puzzles me because of simple reason that you get so much of such indications everywhere. For example, a lot of audience may think, iska is election se kya lena dena hai? But hey, because everything is interconnected in a way of sort. Congress's first reaction on Israel-Hamas situation. They said that they stand by Palestine. They did not mention Hamas in that. In the very first reaction. Why? That's the very fine line. Majority of Indians would say, we stand with Free Palestine. But we consider Hamas as a terrorist organization. It's a very easy thing to say. One could have said very easily. But they did it in two stages. First, they went ahead with the Free Palestine. And when there was a backlash, then they went ahead and a statement of Hamas thing in the evening. Now, of course, it has nothing to do with these elections. But I'm simply trying to underline a point that did Baghel Sahab, did Kamal Nath ji, did Gehlot Sahab, anyone gave a single line of statement which was considered pro-Hamas, anti-Israel or anything like that? No. They simply refused to get in. Kamal Nath refused to hold the rally of India in Bhopal, India lands, for a reason that he knew that he can control his narrative. He cannot control Stalin's narrative or Stalin's son, Udayanithi Stalin's narrative. So he doesn't want to, he doesn't wish to venture in that territory. So he got that entire rally cancelled. That's a odd and funny thing in that way to understand how electorally smart opposition leaders and electorally smart Congress local leaders can figure a solution, figure a way out from this maze. But somehow the central leadership of the Congress is still not learning from that. That's another thing to prove on.
If I could take the liberty to repurpose your pizza analogy. So the Hindu identity politics has become the part of the pizza base of Indian politics.
Yes, true that. That is so true. That is so true. I think that is an undeniable truth that and actually it is so much undeniable that if you look into the demographics of Kerala politics, CPM is the new Hindu party of Kerala for all practical matters. We know that. So even the communists know that what is working and what is not working. So yeah, it's a pizza base is different. That's a big difference, I think, in the 35 years post Mandal Kamandal binaries and the way we look at it. And it would be interesting to observe how these elections play out and how they continue in the short run to the next Lok Sabha election. But certainly this is very, very interesting to observe many layers. First, last point which I want to make, voting intention is never one single issue-based thing. It's a cumulative decision. There are multiple layers to that decision. And nobody literally does that thing because if you will give them 5-6 options, the person will come across with one of those options. But the fact is, there are multiple layers to the voting intent, and to analyze them is a very fascinating thing. And I really thank Sajjan and Varghese both for adding to that education as well for me. Thank you.
My last
No, please go ahead.
A little bit speculative. If in Rajasthan, BJP does manage to win the election, does Vasundhara Raje has a chance of becoming the chief minister? If not her, who?
Who is going to start on this one?
Yes, I think I have taken a bet actually. I was one of the first people. In fact, we've indicated we did some reporting also on the thing. Baba Balaknath, and I'll quickly give the reason why. Number one, he is a Baba. He's a new saffron Baba as CM would help the BJP. And to top it, he is not a Thakur Baba this time. He is a Yadav Baba. So in terms of BJP's Mandal Kamandal combination that they roll all into one, he makes the cut. And he himself, from whatever reporting so far is indicating, he himself may not be able to command so much popularity even in that region. So that will keep him on tenterhooks always. And the numerous other people who are actually trying to jostle for space in Rajasthan, they may have very little to complain. Or if the Baba in saffron emerges, I think all those things are conditional upon the calculations that, if at all, they may have. If it's a very narrow victory, and BJP realizes that without Vasundhara Raje, they cannot actually go into 2024 with a full combat mode, like they are now. As an afterthought, they are trying to appease the Yediyurappas in Karnataka. In that event, in that scenario, they might actually restore Vasundhara Raje as CM. Otherwise, the tendency, the inclination, and the force to pick Baba Balaknath, I think, would be pretty high.
Dr. Sajjan.
No, I agree. It depends up to what is the, I mean, if BJP wins, what is the extent of victory? If it's a close, I mean, Vasundhara is the only leader, who can handle it. But I agree. I was also perplexed that you go into the, I mean, extreme kind of Shekhawati region. You ask about, they will say ki Baba Balaknath, there is one Baba Balaknath. Then you ask, who is he? So people do not know the detail about the Baba. All they know, he is like the yogi of UP. Whether it's a whisper campaign by BJP organization just to throw some alternative to Vasundhara, because that may be a case, because when you find that everywhere, all of a sudden Baba Balaknath is emerging, you do not find the popularity of Baba Balaknath in Mewat region. That's very interesting. In Alwar region, he is not that popular. But that will depend how comfortable BJP's victory margin is there. Yeah, one thing I agree that Gajan Singh Shekhawat and others may not have that much kind of chance, because the way Congress has taken a U-turn in terms of demographic outrage, and from being traditionally not anti but certainly indifferent to OBC assertions. 1960s onward, it was Lohiite and socialist and regional party politics primarily has been led by today what we call OBC against Congress. From there to today, suddenly trying to emerge as the overarching champion of the OBC interest on the caste census issue, etc. Yes, in the elections, we did not find in all the 4 states. I mean, right now in Telangana also, I have been saying OBC census is not an electoral issue, but BJP fears, and it may be a worry at least, that maybe in election time or in future it may. So certainly having a chief minister from OBC fold with a saffron image would be the antidote of the OBC, leader with anti-saffron plank, So BJP is Hindutva and OBC is the master winning combination. There is no antidote to that, at least when it starts. We have seen in terms of Kalyan Singh, Uma Bharti, we have seen in terms of Shivraj Singh Chauhan for a longer stint. So it seems that Baba Balaknath may be an organizational whisper campaign, because you find his names with the same sort of kind of curiosity, and very fascinating curiosity, without knowing much about that. The same fascination is not seen in the Alwar region. But as I said, it's all about speculation. It depends what is the kind of outcome and what is the victory margin. If it's too close, then I think still Vasundhara has a chance.
Yashwant, sir.
I can't really. I don't know the alternative names which can come up. But one thing is very clear, that even if BJP wins all 3 states, the 3 big names are not going to be there. That is very clear. Because if they were really serious about making them, they would have declared their names. Having taken so much of trouble in campaign and everything of keeping them aside, I don't think after winning, the BJP central leadership would like to continue. Yes, one possibility is there that they might be continued for 6 months, till the Lok Sabha election is. That is a possibility. But definitely once the Lok Sabha is done and dusted, after that, even that much of, what shall I say, extension in a very bureaucratic way, that part would be kind of, and they might be get swapped for organizational or central role kind of thing somewhere in the central government.
और मार्गदर्शक मंडल.
और मार्गदर्शक मंडल के हिसाब से अभी उम्र थोड़ी सी कम है, मे बी हो सकता है, you never know, but yeah, I mean, some of them might settle down negotiating a better role for their kids. You know, eventually Yediyurappa also went out just because, you know, he had to ensure that his kids do well. You know, that's what a compromise formula was. Same goes with Dr. Raman Singh. Same goes with Vasundhara Raje. Don't know about Shivraj Singh Chauhan, but one thing is clear that I don't think these people will be continuing in that way, and not just because of central leadership, but also because of organization. These areas, the Madhya Bharat, as we used to call them, they were BJP's organizational areas right from 1952, from the Bharatiya Janasangh days. You know, organization made all these leaders. It's not the other way around. So it will be always, and that is why one question when, you know, Varghese, when everybody asks about Jyotiraditya Scindia, I would be hyper surprised if Jyotiraditya Scindia becomes the chief minister, because for BJP to import a chief minister, for example, you know, Himanta Biswa Sarma, he has to come with and fill up a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, without which the thing is incomplete for them, you know, or you have to be a naturalized citizen of the BJP, almost like 20 years within the organization, like in the case of previous Karnataka chief minister, you know. So, the coming to BJP and becoming a CM within 6 months or 1 year, Madhya Pradesh doesn't look like the territory to me, where organization will allow that in that way. And Jyotiraditya Scindia and Vasundhara Raje are not that kind of a bonding where they would be seen as kind of within the family equation, कि अच्छा बुआ को नहीं दिया है तो भतीजे को बना दिया है. That kind of equation is Hantan Gopal. That's not there. So in either ways, immediate or later, I don't see the same leadership continuing in these three states.
Thank you so much, panelists. It was a very insightful, intelligent, and poetic